Hey everybody, and welcome to this month's Underscore series. Today we have a three-part series of webinars to help you prepare for 2025 and also end 2024 well. So this first presentation is about creating your customer education strategy. So if you're new to this, or if you maybe haven't had a chance, or you want to learn more about how to build an effective strategy, you're going to learn a lot in this session. Just some quick housekeeping before we jump in. First thing is this webinar is being recorded. It's going to be right here on the page that you're at right now. So we'll get that to you immediately after the webinar. But if you do have to hop off for a meeting, all good there. The second thing is there's a Q&A box actually underneath your video. So if you have a question as we're going, we will have some time for Q&A at the end. So feel free to put it down there. And you can also test that out right now. We'd love to hear, who are you? Where are you calling in from? Just take a moment to introduce yourself. My name's Shannon. I'm the Director of Customer and Content Marketing here at Intellum. I'm calling in from Black Mountain, North Carolina, and I'm joined today by Dave Derington. Dave, where are you calling in from today?
I'm in, right now, Redmond, Seattle.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. So let us know where you're calling in from. Just a few other things. This platform will kind of adjust the quality of the video based on your internet speed. So if you're finding it's a little grainy or it's hard to read a slide, there's a little gear button in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can manually adjust to get a different resolution. And then the last thing I just want to let you know is that underneath this video, there's an opportunity for you to rate the session, give us some feedback, let us know what you liked, what you want to hear more about in the future. And you'll also find some attachments. So we created for you a customer education strategy deck template. You can grab that, clone it, use it for your own customer education strategy using some of the tips you're going to learn today. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Dave Derington. If you've been in customer education for a minute, you're very likely familiar with Dave. So he is the founder and principal of Software Education Solutions. He's also one of the co-hosts of the CELab podcast, which is a long-running, one of really the only customer education focused podcasts. And he's been in customer education for quite a while at places like Optimizely, at Gainsight, Service Rocket, a number of different places. So he's got a wealth of wisdom and knowledge to share with you. Dave, I'll let you share a little bit more about yourself and then take us into the content.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Shannon. And as always, you do such a great job organizing these events. We've got some great folks lined up. So thanks again, and all of you that are on today. Hopefully, I'll probably move pretty fast through this material because I know it so well and it's by heart. I'll talk about how you can learn more, or tell me to slow down later. And so, yeah, thanks, Shannon, for the intro. I am this year working a lot on my own independently under Software Education Solutions, but CELab has been our baby for years, and it's been such a great platform to interact and talk with folks like you and show it, what we're doing, and elevate each of you that have great stuff to do. So, hey, reach out. Let's talk about cool stuff. And right now, we're going to move on, and we're going to begin talking about creating your strategy and make sure I get this interface right. All right, so I don't have to read the words so much on the screen for you to know what strategy is. We all know what strategy is, right? It's a high-level plan, and it's all of the things. It's the direction we're going. It's where we're headed to. It's where we want to be. It's aspirational. And one of the things that many of us, you'll hear a lot of us out there who are talking about customer education every day on social, well, not every day, but every week, every month on social media and LinkedIn, that, why is this a thing? We think education is really well understood and known, but it isn't, because it evolves so quickly. Last week, I'm not scripting this, I'm just kind of adding new stuff in. I was at DevLearn last week interacting with a whole different universe of folks that I don't normally interact with. And it really brought me back to the basics about why customer education is different, and thereby really we get into this problem. And that is because we always start reactively. Think about the genesis of a company. An organization, a lot of times in software, we're bringing something new into the world that's never been seen before. It's not like physics or math or the things that your kids are learning in school. It is an unknown, and it's changing while we're looking at it. So what our customers experience of that as we launch a great new idea into the world, or we have a new program or whatever it is that they can't learn. And I mean can't. They can't learn because they're blocked. They're blocked because all we can do really is When we don't have a team, we don't have resources, we don't have anything, react. That's it. Hey, I'll send Joe over here. I'll send Jane somewhere. And we deal with it the best we can. Hence, we need a strategy. But there's things that really hold us back, which are, these are nobody's fault. As you're growing in a business, as your team is expanding to your department, whatever, there's a thrust of change. But we end up having a lack of coordination, a lack of what I'd call coherence, bringing stuff together in a one track and everybody's like-minded, and a real inefficient use of resources. Okay. The other variable in here, and I'm being rather bold, but it's true, is sometimes education isn't the most important thing to leadership. It's hard to measure. And that's why we have strategy as such a big, important task ahead of us. If you can't measure, if you can't prove your value over time, while there'll be excitement to begin with, it will diminish every month, every year, because we can't show up. So that's what I'm going to get to here. And pardon me, because I have my notes on another screen, so I might be slow in changing the screen itself, and our interface is slow. So let's talk about, again, I'm trying to set you up. As my co-host Adam Avramesky will say, I like to say, frame up, right? Well, that's because we need a perspective on what our journey is. If you are one of my friends who have the great fortune to be in a company, doing learning, you have a team, you're in a business that's been around for a while, this might be a little bit alien. But if you were to go into a company that's just growing, you're going to find this shift, this phasing, this, you're starting out reacting. That's what we do. Everybody trains. It's our responsibility to get something in front of the customer when they're suffering and they're struggling. And we have to get ourselves out of that. That is the hardest darn thing to do, because I don't know, my experience was when I got into a company and I found this amazing challenge ahead to help build a learning program and a certification and all these different things. I was excited. However, I didn't feel the support in that like I would have hoped so. It was great at first, and then it got harder, and then it got harder as you go from reacting to performing to scaling to optimizing. What did we get hit with over the last decade? COVID, cultural upheaval. Things change real fast. And again, I mentioned COVID. We reacted to COVID, but if we had been ready, unfortunately, where I was, one of the companies I worked for was Outreach. We had already been working on on-demand content and pivoting our entire program into reusable chunks that our team throughout the organization can use to train. And we're going towards micro-learning. We're going towards academy. We fortunately, because we had done that, were able to really adapt quickly. We were already beyond reacting into performing. I don't say that to gloat. That was just my job, right? But hold this in your mind, because this is important to think about as we move through. We're going from that reacting step into being proactive. And therein, the next step is, okay, and again, I don't want to trivialize this, but think about this all as reframing the way we think about strategy in context of customer ed. Anybody can talk about strategy. This craft is really difficult. Get a review, clearly defined, documented, measurable, aligned with business outcomes. These are really the things that, while you think they're table stakes, they're a lot harder in practice to implement when you're moving a mile a minute, right? We move in dog years in startups, and that's spreading and infecting every company I know. Little quote there was from Nick Mehta, who was talking about customer success and about this phenomenon that I always experienced is, well, why is it that you have a CSM go ahead and create a program? And this is often the genesis of some customer ed programs, because they have to. They have to do something. So first logical step from here, and a really good one that I see to take, and also comes with caveat, is that most people go, we're gonna build an academy, hence Intellum, and why this is a really great platform for you to build upon, right? What Shannon may share with you, and everybody that works in this field will share with you, is that it's not just enough to say I have a strategy to go build an academy, right? Your strategy is not just an academy, but it's a huge core and a foundational pillar. Why? We need to get all of the content in place in a format everybody understands, everybody knows about, and that we can use, like Intellum, we have this platform, this substrate layer that we collect data. What did you look at? How long did you spend on it? What did you do with it? And then that question starts becoming next, where we have integration points to different systems. We pull data out, we work with that. Your strategy encompasses all of that. Like I say, I seek out an LMS that fits my business, my character, my tone, my need. When I've worked with Intellum before, this is important, right? And now I know I'm going to build around that micro learning, different things I can use. I might have a quizzing platform or a proctoring platform. I'm going really far, but what we're really trying to do is ensure in that the steps we think we're going to take. It's a big purchase to buy an LMS. It's a big task to staff a team up. It's a big challenge to go and build a credentialing program. If we don't have that written down with the goals in mind and measurable indices for them on how not just we say how many certifications do we deliver. Nobody cares about that. I'm letting that drop. I say that tongue in cheek because I do care. But from the business perspective, you're not aligned to what the company is trying to do. Here's a really great example. Our NPS, our Net Promoter Score, is through the floor. It's terrible. This was an example that I had at Gainsight. People don't like our training. We don't really have any, so we're getting dinged on that. That was our goalpost, right? We said, oh, we're going to work to lift the NPS score and other things. So you pick these measurable things that are business leaning first, fill in around them with, yes, I do want completion rate. I do want to see things like educational attach rate, which might be every professional services engagement adds training to that. Now we can see all of these different pieces in play and measure them. And that takes a lot more time. And sometimes it takes what I call a little bit of cultural anthropology, meaning you're digging into the company you work for, getting to know the people, getting to the processes and ideas, and we'll write it down on paper and go. Okay. Again, you might find me be a little philosophical here, but let's get into some more brass tacks on how you do things. The philosophy is extremely important. Note to that again in a minute. If you were to say, Dave, okay, well, how do you do the strategy? There's a lot more intricacies to this. There's a really good tool I use is the 5 whys. You're going into a room and you're doing what I'd call an elicitation. Let's not get fancy. Discovery, learning, trying to figure out what our customers are all about. And not just that, figure out what we know about the platform that we service them with. So use these kinds of metrics. The 5 whys in this case is, and you can go look it up. You're basically like a little kid. Why? It's annoying. It also gets results. I like to move beyond that because this is just a really good visual to say your task as an educational resource, building a customer education program, and is to really peel apart all of these layers that are bound up in what people are thinking. That thinking might be wrong sometimes. An example is I might talk to a salesperson and a customer success person and an onboarding person, and they each have a different piece of the customer pie. What does the customer object to? How do I close the sale? What are the challenges that happen that I have to set up in implementation where people get stuck and they just don't get this concept? And then the end user is like, what the heck is this thing? They're all different people sometimes. And that means I have to really understand the goals of not just my business, but their business. Being focused, if I know what my goals are, I have a clear understanding of the challenges that block learning. Why is it that our customer just can't get past this first step and do X, Y, Z? It seems so simple. Well, it's not, because once you start asking customers, then you learn different story, right? So we're building learning pathways and a plan of action that evolve necessarily out of the people and the substrate of it's our culture. It's our product. It's the audience that we have, and that's different every time, which is why doing a strategy is really difficult. All right, I'm being cognizant of time here. Again, I'm trying to fill in some blanks and things that you might not know about if you're starting out for the first time. If you do, like some of our friends that are going to be talking in a minute, they're about, and I can tell you some more stories. Okay, so let's go a little bit further. Well, I'm already saying this doesn't sound easy. I hope it doesn't sound easy. It should sound exciting. This is a challenge in customer ed that I really, truly adore. That our job is to be this cultural anthropologist, this investigative journalist, sometimes an interrogator. I don't like that role, but I'm there to root out challenges and challenge areas. You can see on the screen here that this is from a workshop that I did not so long ago, that it takes a different lens upon learning. Now, a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too, I've been an academic. I've been in the classroom. I know how to build a rubric. I know how to do all this stuff. It's tradition. It works. But when I go into a corporate environment, now we have this new motion and way of dealing with people a lot of the times, and we call this customer success. I think customer success is customer education is a component or an aspect of customer success in one big way, is that we're developing the verbs, we're developing the actions that could be incorporated anywhere and everywhere along a customer's journey and integrated like it's happening now. The trends are happening, showing us that we're moving towards digital customer success. If you don't look at that, if you don't know what that is, look it up. We have some podcast on CELab about it, and there's a lot of really smart people to tell you all about it. But what it means is that our platforms should be helping really expose the challenges that a customer has. Here you can see on the screen, I'm going to ask you what your core challenges are from a customer success perspective. What are the things that customers are saying? Oh, I see my customers asking me the same darn question every single time I get on the phone with them. And it takes me an hour to explain it. Why can't I just have a module for that, right? I'm trying to go through this a little bit quicker. But then you start taking your journey and you walk with not just your trusted folks in your company through the life cycle stages that we have set for our customers, our customer journeys, this narrative of learning that wraps over all of the things our people are trying to do. They want to be excited. They are excited about our products. They just get stuck and then they get mad, right? So what are the things that we have experienced? What's happening in onboarding? Oh my gosh, it takes 5, 6, 7 weeks to onboard. Why? Well, Joe went back and then forgot to do such a thing. And then we got on and I had to handhold them through, and nobody's blaming anybody. It's just reality. Okay, cool. Well, it shows like in onboarding, we need to develop an on-demand module that we can put in our academy, and we can really elevate that, right? Sometimes I'm going to get my hands dirty. Support, we've got adoption, we've got all these different segments. And if you think about a flow, a channel of learning that happens not just once, but learning is continuous. And it's not just a customer, it's me, it's my partners, it's everybody. I feel like customer education is the core of customer success. And it also is that emergence, that starting point in a lot of businesses where your L&D and your enablement and your partner, all these other things are going to come from. We're setting the stage. We're really getting into the problem sets and opening and unblocking our customer and our business. Okay, so there are two things in that. I want to talk about, again, every slide aligning with your business, figuring out what you're measuring. Your mission is to craft a high-level plan that also considers technology. Okay, I'm saying that in a goofy, pandering way because I don't think we think about it as much. I haven't. I've forgotten. I've said I'm just going to go heads down and I'm going to work my tail off and I'm going to get this course made, and then I'm done. Hey, Dave, how's that performing? Oh, geez. Maybe that's not just me. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'll be self-deprecating, but we have to understand what it is that we're going after. Are we impacting adoption? How the heck are you even going to measure that? It requires patience. It requires patience not from you, but also from your leadership and partner to do that. To build, this is the other thing that I know some of you on the call know this, but you have to maintain what you build. And I don't know how many times I've had to learn this lesson, and I'm not trying to make myself look dumb, but you're in the thick of creating something good. You're building an academy. You're expanding it all out. And you know what? You get to the end of that journey and your boss is like, what's next? And I'm off to the races. Well, the thing that I have to really understand is, or we all have to understand, is what we build, we have to maintain. We have to scale with limited resources. We've got to adapt quickly. And we have to, in the end, we're not going to have jobs until we meet the continually changing needs and expectations of our leadership. You're not opposed to anybody here, but our job is also to say, hey, I know you want to do that. You know what? I got all this content I got to keep up to date. How are we going to do that? I have a plan. And that means maybe it's a resource. Maybe it's an external resource. Maybe, I don't know what. Maybe we use our subject matter team to help us update content on the fly and put it into some kind of a repository. Whatever you do, this is one of the most important things I can say as part of your strategy is you always need to figure out how you keep this maintained and how you continue to do that and decrease the amount of time it takes. What are you going to do? What's your plan for that? Okay. Again, I'm not telling you all the answers right now, but I do have many of them, and ones I don't. I'll talk about this in a little bit. I want to go further and dig harder in that your strategy, if you're seeing if you're picking up what I'm putting down, there is a fundamental shift in our marketplace. One of the things that I don't contain on this is what my hypothesis is, and that's all it is. This is my personal informed opinion, is that we're starting to see a dramatic shift towards the personal learning journey. That is, I'm on my own as a learner, as a customer, even as an employee of a company who has a lot of people trying to get me to learn something. It's all on me. And our job is to unblock that and help facilitate that learning, because if it's all on me, I'm going to go looking. Where's the academy? It's the first thing I'm looking for. Oh, there it is. Good. Get me a login. I'm in. Hey, you know what? I need one pagers, something I could print out. Cool. What about a little short? Yeah, I got you. Micro learning. Great. What this is encapsulated within is this shift towards digital CS I talked about before. It doesn't mean that we're not doing live training anymore. It means we have to be more efficient and cognizant of the resources that come into play at scale. That's a hard term. It keeps beating me up too. Scale means you do more with less, right? And over time, when I'm starting in onboarding, what do I want to do in onboarding? I want to get my implementation team not stressed out. I don't want my trainers to repeat the same thing 10 million times. I want to be there and be a co-creator and a partner as from the educational component with my clients, with my customers. And that means my team shouldn't be spending time always building, well, we should be spending time building new content, but not always one-on-one training with somebody, the whole company. And we have to do things at different times. What happens when you get to adoption? Well, I did onboarding and somebody went through in the entirety of the LMS. Well, now I should be actually coming back and putting in our system, in our academy, new stuff, or finding little bits and microing that and putting it on a drip feed campaign just to get me a bump here and then and go, oh, did you know? Oh, yeah, I didn't know that this really exciting piece just came out and I can use it. And we're ultimately going towards that lifetime value. Our job, your job, if you choose to accept it, and customer education is one of the most exciting ones. That's why, Shannon, I'll just give you a bump here. I appreciate your perspective of both marketing and customer education, because we have to be thinking like that. We always have to be thinking outbound. What are we doing? What's new? What's exciting? And this trend is not going to go away. Do more with less is the mantra of digital CS. Okay, keeping going here. I think I'm doing okay on time. I'm trying to move myself along, and some of the things that are in my deck I'm adding here as I go. Well, let's talk about the other lament that every customer education leader who has been battle tested knows, is the collaboration part of things. It's so intrinsically important that we don't silo ourselves. And I'll read this out and then I'll get to the point I'm trying to make. Your best friends, or at least allies, should be in product marketing, sales, marketing in general, not product marketing, even the whole entirety of the marketing team, support, sales, solutions engineering, customer success. Oh, I didn't list that, but you get my point. These are all different pieces of a puzzle of human learning. These are people that have a different slice of the pie, that understand things that you might not. And your job isn't necessarily to know everything. Your job is to channel it. We have to break silos. We're silo busters, in that we are developing the canonical story of the software as it grows. And it's like we're documenting Star Wars or Marvel, multiverse. And I say that intentionally because it's really that. Things are changing. The story is emerging. Have you ever heard the term retcon? That means I'm retroactively changing some context of something that happened in canon, and now that canon has changed because we have to do that. That's what we're doing all the time in software. That sounds weird. The point is, if you're not working with all of the individuals across the team, or you're not comfortable with that, there's been times where I've had to work around some of those problems. Example, there's somebody that was like a different part of the world, so I had a team member there, and they would keep up to date and interact with them on our behalf. Really cool. So you've got to also make sure the needs of those people, all these different teams, are encompassed in your plan, right? Because if you're not addressing an onboarding problem, or you're not actually going back to sales and saying, oh, sales, you know what? Not only do we have SKUs for these products that you can add on to your sales, your opportunity, like, oh, we can do a certification or workshop. You can sell that, close that at the time of the deal, and you can make more of your money. That's really motivating. But it's also helpful for sales to know that we have training in the first place, because that becomes a validation of security. So lots you can learn. You should always be integrating. You should have a walk around deck for that. Okay, Libby said that active listening is one of the most important things to do. I suck at it from time to time. I've learned the hard way about why it's so important just to be quiet. Obviously, it's hard for me. Um, but what I found is that by sometimes having a quiet pause or not talking, I'm not there to tell you what I think about a product. If you know all the stuff, I'm there to be cautiously or quietly sitting, listening, interacting. But active listening also presumes that we have informed ourselves enough to be able to sieve through different things and ask really insightful questions. What I've learned to be able to do now um, is way better than what I was 10, 15 years ago. So it's something we're always developing as a skill. But I should, if you're building teams, should encourage you to really work and model this time doing things like I've used Gong for my entire training team and me too, to sit down and go through the narrative and go, hey, you're talking too much. I know you're a trainer, but you're talking too much. You should let somebody else guide or let someone else answer this question. Or if you're in an elicitation or discovery session, yeah, you definitely should be talking that much only to validate and conform. This is not absolute, but I'm just saying this is a really important thing. All right, keeping going here. And Shannon, bump me when we have any key questions. We can take a break. Um, the the other thing that is important as a part of your strategy, and again, I'm not filling in all the details. I'm showing you the sign, or the absolutely most challenging things that happen as you start to develop your strategy that I didn't think of when I started out. Future proofing was one of them, and now it's even worse. That what I mean by future proofing is obvious. How do I take content that I created a month ago or a year ago, 3 years ago, and is it relevant? Well, a lot of times it's on it and it looks old, the video is crappy, the audio wasn't great. Maybe I'm embarrassed by the content that I created because of the first time I used Camtasia or some other thing, or Articulate. Um, Whatever the case, one part of your strategic program should be to think about the future. Do I design small bits that I can pull up something in Camtasia or Final Cut or whatever you're using, or in Articulate, go back, make a couple of changes and updates, drop new screenshots in, boom, we're back and updated. Um, Clickpathy type content, that phrase stuck in my head as being, okay, it's a now do this, now do this, now do this, now do this. It's a kind of an ignorant kind of training that just presumes you're going to walk somebody through and have them figure it out. That's not that's more product de-education. Even that's an insult to a degree for me. Um, but we're there for outcomes. We're there to get people to have the light bulb come on. We can read through a lot of these other things, but just let them wash over you. I'll pick out a couple. Content governance. What does that mean? That means that we actually have a process for review that validates that errors don't get through, that we're presenting the right content. We're taking down things we don't need anymore because they're out of date. Who's looking at that? I would usually assign somebody to be a kind of a program manager, a curriculum manager, that their responsibility was to look at the whole of the content we had from time to time and pick that out, add this in, build new stuff, right? Make sure things are reusable and be agile. When I say agile, it's not really, although I put it there as a big A, it just means you're looping, small loops, flywheels, constantly thinking about what's new, thinking about new technologies that are out there. For example, I've seen IORAD, Parda, Cluso. These are apps that can help another person on your team get you content that you can take and build back out in your academy and shoulder some of the work without having that be a burden. That is accelerating your delivery time, and it's so cool. You're really future proofing if you start thinking about those tools, which also don't cost a lot, and integrate into your stack. Okay, let's keep going here. I know I got a lot. This one I'll let sit on the screen a minute, and this is indeed philosophy, philosophical. If you have your strategy really is flavored by your organization and your goals. But one of the things that Adam Evermescu and I, as a part of CELab, and a large network of people did several years ago was to create this. This we beat up. We spent a year on this, and it's six points that help inform your strategy. It helps you think about what we should be doing and the way we should be going about it, which is focus on value, build scale, lead with data, and focus on outcomes. That's the business alignment. Agile, I just talked about that. Make experiences that you actually want to learn from, and build in the moment of, or serve people in the moment of need. Experience it yourself. If you're going, it's try demoing, try learning how to use your product at 1 o'clock in the morning sometime, and with what you've got and no understanding, or pick something up and try to do it then and see what you get. If there's no on-demand library or academy, oh well, maybe I needed that. Or is there videos anywhere? Nope. So, and experiences you want to learn from is probably one of the most important and underrated things. I was talking with friends of mine that work at a company in an L&D part of that, and they said, you know what, it's just easier to create this scoring module and do the thing that I've always been doing, because I know I'm not getting any crap from the leadership, and I'll just get it done. Is it what I want to do now? So that is an experience anybody wants to learn from in that context. Is I could do something more innovative, more edgy, or learn something new, just one thing, and add it to it and incrementally grow the program. I want to look at my content, and if I don't like looking at my content, what's the delta there? How can I get it better? I can be aspirational, and sometimes the work's just got to get done. So, anyway, speaking of aspiration, I would use this as a guidepost. All right, we're at about the 30-minute mark. I'm doing really well. I only got a few more slides, so I'm going to bust through these and then circle back and answer questions. And then that means I can slow down just a little bit. Once again, if I were to lay out my methodology for creating a strategy program, and in a discussion like this is really what I'm getting to. I'm giving you the big blocks and the overall general idea and the frame up to building your own strategy. I think it should be custom for your organization. You shouldn't necessarily have to have a framework for any, oh, we're using this framework or that framework or whatever, because part of strategy in businesses that are moving really quickly is to be exceptionally adaptable. That means then one place you might have to be agile, another place, well, I don't know. People aren't working with me, so I have to adopt a different type of technique. Boiling it all down, identify your goals. What are you trying to do? It's not butts and seats, it's adoption or retention or renewal, or it's something that's blocking us from selling, not just selling, it's blocking people from loving our product, right? They don't love our product and can't use it. Well, they're going to churn. Program goals, align to business goals. We just said that. Focus on scale. Can't tell you enough. You're doing instructor-led training, and you can do only so much, but to get to scale, you have to use on-demand, micro-learning, small drip feed campaigns, all the things that are in our arsenal. But at the core of it is on-demand, right? One of the first things I'm going to do, throw up my learning management system, make a good foundation at a beachhead, and give anything they need in learning pathways that makes it easy and clear what they need to learn to get started. That's not where I stop. Then scale goes further about coming back in different moments of time and different experiences and addressing pain points. That's all in your roadmap. So if you stop at the academy, then what are you going to do next? Are you going to hook it up to some other thing? Are you going to add, I don't know, maybe you want to add learning labs. I spent last week talking about learning labs, virtualized servers that give anybody a hands-on experience. And within that, you can do other things. You don't have to do that all at once. You can incrementally work on it, but it really is a powerful, powerful exercise for you to develop a 3 to 5 year roadmap, 2 to 5 year, for example, present that with leadership and have them sign off on it too. Then you co-create and you can change the way you go. Then that leads into that naturally getting that consensus. If your leaders and your peers, and not just people above you, but beside you, supporting you, your substrate, your network, your fabric, your culture is all aligned with what you're doing, and they have a stake in it. Well, I found it really hard to get excited about that kind of stuff until our team had a project plan executed that was calendrical, and it would map to each quarter release process. And our mission at several of the companies I work for was to have, I'll use the term I used to work in enterprise security, a 0 day for education, a 0 day for learning. That means on day 0, when we're releasing new content and new features, all of our content's updated. We knew about this all along. We got it done. That's really ambitious, and I can't do it like that all the time. But if you are, the last point here, keeping everybody informed in the loop, everybody knows what you're doing, you have what I'd call a walk around deck to present your team. That's a core strategy that you can put in your pocket. And you can always use that to keep it going. It's absolutely really helpful. But then having that written out and articulated in a way that, say, we have an ops team and one heck of a cool project manager that knows how to do, a Microsoft project or Asana or Airtable or whatever it is, but they help you contextualize that and put it into plan so everybody can actually get tasks on it. So you're growing your strategy as you go. All right, let's keep moving here near the end. The other thing that I will harp on no end is that, and I always come back to this at the end, is measuring your success. This is where most people, including myself, need help. Measuring outcomes are the only way that we as educators and enablement people are ever going to move the needle. And that's not just for our businesses, but it's for our career. When I've worked in many a company and I've gotten to this point where I have that snarky question from my executive, I'm making fun of this, but it's really serious. Hey, Dave, what's the ROI of your program? Can you give me a not status update? There was not just one instance, but there's more than one where it's been impossible to do so. Meaning I didn't have things connected. I didn't have the right kind of learning management system with database backend that I can bring data out, or I didn't have the opportunity to bring in my Salesforce connections or whatever. There's always more work to do. For you to measure success, this is an intricate and extremely important process. And you can start small. So on this chart, what you see is some things I always bring up in sessions. I talked NPS. I threaded that through from our previous, earlier slides. But this is real data here that you see in all of these. To the left, these accounts with or without training. One of the challenges with training is that, well, okay, how am I going to measure? How am I going to prove that there was a lift? How am I going to prove that education was the thing that helped somebody? They went to a webinar, they went to they took all of the on-demand stuff, they got their badge, whatever. How do I causally connect that, not correlate, to an outcome? You can't in this case. You just can't do it. Why? Because there's too much noise, and there's so many people doing so many things throughout the company, different things, that your one thing is a drop in the bucket. But you can measure it, and even in the early stages, what I'm showing here, this is NPS with or without a company. Without these are slow down. The brain's moving faster than the tongue. I can measure the difference. I can look at all the companies and all the NPS scores for that company or CSAT or whatever it is that touched my training. I know that they did authoritatively versus all the clients that didn't. And I can show significant, in this case, it was, it should be 30 or like almost 90 in real NPS terms. But I showed we moved the needle and I proved it. Did I get the granular? It was Jim. Whatever. No, I didn't. But you can measure it. And some of these things are easier than you would think to actually get some indicational information. Other things are hard. So this one over here to the right is an example, again, using real data, that we were pursuing onboarding. And onboarding is so hard to measure, right? Well, I mean, it seems straightforward, but onboarding is really everywhere. It's always happening. We just have a big chunk of people that we do the first time we engage with the client, then we'll come back later on. This chart showed that after we had built our academy, or we built our university, and we measured data, for several months, we were able to prove that, and these bars here were really not indicative. What you're looking at, these two down below, this is days it took to onboard. We were measured time to first value, and that is when, hey, the light bulb came on. People started getting using things, and that might be a concurrent. We call the term, monthly active users. How many people logged into the system and did something? And that was, in this case, our index for onboarding success. We moved the needle from 4 months down to 1. We proved it. These are hard to do. But if you're thinking about that kind of stuff and putting that into your plan, your strategy, I want to move the needle on NPS. How am I going to prove it? I want to move I want to show that companies who churn didn't take any of our training. Okay, that's a great story to tell. How do I tell that story, work with it? I go back to my CSMs in my sales field and say, look, you should, and try to encourage people to engage with the training. When they engage with it, then they have a lift. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to try to start to wrap up here, but I think that's one of the single most important things that I can leave you with. all of this is not, I didn't give you a spreadsheet and say, do all these things and it's going to be magic. Nope. I'm talking about all those pitfalls and roadmaps or pitfalls on your journey that are going to be tremendously hard. And if you want to talk more, I take calls with anybody. All right. I'll sit down 30 minutes with you. I'd love to learn what your challenges are. Even better, if you have showcase stuff that you want to share with me, that share with the world, let me know. I'm always looking for a new story and a new friend and somebody else to add to our network to tell us how they've done it and how they did it well. But because believe me, we need that. But if you want more help, if you really need a consultant or advisor, I am out there. I'm doing this every day with a whole diversity of different people, different clients, different companies in all phases. And I love this stuff. It's hard, but it's the good hard. It's the kind of hard that's going to change your career. And if you love this field like I do, hey, let's do this together. I want to learn from you. And if you can learn from me, or I can connect you to somebody who's got more chops in a certain field, there's a whole lot of us that work and collaborate together. And I'm part of that community of practice. And like Shannon here, we're all in it together and helping us out. So hit me up. We'll take questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. And I love that it's not always the straight X, Y, and Z. There's the very tactical, practical, here's how we define our strategy. But so much of it is changes with the needs of the business and personalities and politics and all of that. Like that's part of our strategy too in the rollout. So we do have a few questions. I want to remind people before they forget, underneath this video, you can rate it, but there's also a text box. So if there are things that you want to learn more about, that you want us to host webinars about, please include that there. And if you hopped on a little later, there's also a strategy deck template for you that's free underneath the video. So a few questions came in. Brett had asked one and said, we don't have an academy yet. How do you suggest that we move to performing, which I think goes back to your maturity earlier on? Any suggestions for how we can create courses pre-LMS?
Yes, very much. This is one of the best questions, and I'm going to answer it in an affirming way, Shannon, too, to include the LMS, because this is really important. There are two threads in this question, and it's really key. Let's take the perspective of both you, who is a practitioner, and you go, oh, I'm not going to get budget for this. We're just not, because you're not going to buy an inexpensive LMS if you're going to do things right. You need to, vet ones and find the right vendor. You're going to talk to Intellum because you're here, but that's next, okay? And the other perspective is, I actually want you to hold in mind that the vendor that you choose to work with. This is a dance between both of those. I've been this intermediary. I've worked at so many companies with so many vendors like Intellum. I've used your platform. And what's most important to all of us is that we come to that and we're ready when we're ready. What does that mean? Brett, you're building courses now. Cool. That's exactly what you need to do. So what I would encourage you right now is to think about the big picture of your strategy. For example, a lot of companies begin not just with on-demand content, but and I'm going to say this and kind of counter what I said before about the progression and the move towards digital customer success. If you don't have things worked out, do virtual instructor-led for a while. Record them, put them on a website, share the Zoom links, organize them somewhere on a simple page that everybody can do. It could be if you have a support platform, carve out a segment of it. If you have a web team that can give you a page on the website, go talk to them, right? Because, and Shannon, I think you'll agree with me on this, what that does is signal readiness, not just with you, but also to the vendor that you're in and end up going to work with. And I know that from being the other side too. It's like, oh my God, it's all laid out, and you have a strategy. Oh, this is wonderful. You know what? This will take us a few weeks. We can actually help you preload, and you're off and running. And then you can unlock these other motions where now we have the data and stuff. Now, if you want to get into that, okay, well, I do want to put videos up and I want to get a little bit of information off of it. There's some tricks you can do. They will cost you some work, but they're not that hard. But again, I would encourage you to think future forward, that you're going to need more tools as you go, but be ready for them. So that's a great readiness. So you're going to get to performing if you could say, I can demonstrate to my customers that there's training somewhere and they can navigate to get to it, right? And you have, at a minimum, you can sign up for some webinar, like live classes, and the core content that you would have. I mean, it's as good as having 1, 2, or 3 short videos, or maybe long videos. People don't care if they can get to the content. It can be long, it can be crappy, it can be junky. I'm good with that.
Awesome. I think I had also responded to Brett and said there's a monthly meetup called From Scratch, tackling this kind of thing of, okay, like we don't always have the tools and technology we want. And I think there's a great way to prove things out and experiment before you invest in tools and technology. And definitely it is a lot easier to work with an LMS provider when you already have content to pour in, right? You don't want to get the thing and then you don't have like anything to put in it, because now you've paid for a home that has no inhabitants. So yeah, something to think about. Okay. Prasanna asked this question. I'd love to learn how you'd go about deciding if your company needs a full-blown education program with certifications or multiple topics versus just having a webinar series tailored to customers. And then there's a second part of the question, but we'll start with that one.
Okay. I think there's several signals that indicate when you need to really go into a full program, right? And what you mean by that is exactly what you said. We aspire to have certifications that are medium to high stakes, and you have all the trimmings. Usually there's an inflection point in a company. I would encourage you to look at the book Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. In fact, we did a podcast on it, which I'm still amazed by, that I could invite him to CELab and he would show up and we had an amazing conversation. The thing about that book, and I wish I could show the graphic, I didn't put it in the deck, but there's something called the chasm. The chasm really comes if I'm going to nerd out in business terms, but we usually talk in terms of series, a Series A company or seed company. They're getting a round of financial capital and influx of funding that helps them to achieve the next step of growth. So I'm usually focused very much on B2B, B2C companies that are going through this growth process of becoming being either acquired or we're bringing new ideas in the world. This is how it works. So when you're thinking about the academy or when am I ready for that? It's when your customers or clients are asking you a lot of questions all the time. It's like on a repeat. You're getting all these support tickets they're not support. It's not break fix. It's something else. They're nuanced. And the support person scratches their heads like, I get what they're saying, or your CSMs are just having they're in this motion of train, but you don't call it that, because this is a boiling the frog kind of scenario that we get incredibly busy. But what happens in education is that we spread it. It delegates itself. We all educate. It feels good. It's part of human nature, right? When you start seeing those indices that your team is getting stressed or they're on calls so much and they're not really doing the job that they're there to do, which is move us forward, that's the inflection point. That's where you're hitting the chasm. The chasm is also that moment in time when you go from a customer, and this is hard. I've gone through startup after startup after startup to get this kind of perspective because it doesn't come naturally. What happens is there's this excitement and energy first as you're growing this idea and everybody's on. And then you get hit, and customers come to you with an understanding of what they came to you for a reason. They're supporting your platform for a reason. It works, right? But it might be hard, but it's still better than the crap that they're doing now. And then you go to people who are like, why are you making me use this? What? I have to scale this out to my team? And now we're dealing with big companies, and the people there just don't, it's not they don't care. It's that now you're changing their workflow and their process, and they didn't make that decision. So that's usually the other indicator that says, oh my God, well, now I'm going to have to make this, because now you have people dragging their feet, kicking and screaming. They're not wanting, they're not against you. It's like, I'm going to find an excuse not to do this training or to get involved with this platform. But when I care, it darn well better be there. And then that causes you a lot of heartache and pain too. And then you start getting other questions. So I can go on and on and on, but there's all these little signifiers when they build up to like this bolus of, we got a problem. That's always where I meet a team and they go, we got to fix this with education. We've got to fix this. We've got a certification. We have to have a learning path. And that's a little vague, but it's clear enough to say that there are all kinds of things you should be looking for. Does that make sense?
I think it's also helpful to think about like time zones, availability of people, and how do people best learn? So there are some things where absolutely a live format is the best way to learn, or having that opportunity to learn alongside or ask more nuanced questions. But
Yes.
there are some things where people just really need this much information and they don't want to sign up at 3 p.m. on a Thursday to go through a 45-minute thing to get this much info, so
Right.
figuring out like, what is it that people need to learn? How are they going to learn that? Which I think actually leads to Prasanna's other question just around, when do you figure out on demand versus ILT, which like, I don't know if anything else on that other than thinking about like what time zones are your customers in? Are they largely kind of in one concentrated area or?
Yeah. I think that's also nuanced, Shannon. You answered it partially already. It's that, if you're doing a lot of ILT okay, I'll give you a scenario. I was working for a company that they did mostly instructor-led training. Our customers asked for it. Yeah, but we were getting in a condition where we were traveling the world, quite literally. And it was getting busier, busier, and busier. And by the time that happened, we had a heck of a time to pivot over to an on-demand version. So because our resources were bound up in training. And then that called into, I had to hire additional resources externally to actually close the gap to be able to build the on-demand, which would decrease the pressure on our education team. Right. So, and it may be similar to that, but you're not using trainers, you're using your CSMs, and they're not telling you, but they're complaining. So there's nuances to when you'll say, like, I really want an academy, I really want an on-demand course, when I know I have people, like you said, Shannon, all over the world. Now I have to actually have a couple different languages, and I have to meet and then try to provide people with things that will be available to them anytime, any place, but I'm not going to be there to help. That's what we're really looking for. So that if you have that now, and that might happen early, that might happen late, might happen at all. It just depends. But you need to have that scale play, which is the on-demand, and also up above alongside your ILT. ILT should never go away because you should use it to do different things, go deeper, answer other questions.
Awesome. Love that. All right. Well, that is it for our time today. Thank you, Dave, for sharing. And walking us through this. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. I know you had a lot of choices of where to be this afternoon.
Indeed.
And next up, we're actually going to have a webinar with Tom Studdert, who's the VP of Customer Education and Support at Therapy Brands. He's going to be talking about creating an impactful annual report. So if you think about all of this, strategy to kind of align people, we also want to show them all the great work our team has already done. So he's going to walk us through not only how to create that report, but how to go tell that story to the business, especially to your executive team, so they can have that excitement that Dave was talking about. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody again for joining. And I'll, also for the next webinar underneath this video, if you like scroll, you can click just to the next webinar and just jump right in. So hope to see you over there. And Dave, thanks again.
Thank you, Shannon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.